Hey everyone, it is Joanna Phillips with Let's Talk About It. And
Tammy Warner.
happy, well, today's Wednesday, so by the time you see it, it'll be Thursday. Happy Thursday. Oh yeah, so we have a lot to talk about.
Some bones to pick.
About the board meeting last night. Lots of confusion. But before we hop onto that, just want to touch on a couple of things.
First, make sure you like and share this video,
Oh yeah,
please.
forgot that. Like, share, follow. We love your comments. Stay tuned. So I misspoke because the I don't know if it was a motion or a resolution was it had to be a resolution because it's a local law. It was very confusing. So I'm just going to make a statement that before we get into today's discussion, I want to quickly clarify something from our last episode when we talked about the town repealing the new stretch energy code. When many municipalities adopted the stretch code a few years ago, it required buildings to meet higher energy efficiency standards than the statewide code at the time. Since then, New York has updated the state energy conservation construction code and incorporated many of those higher efficiency standards from the stretch program into the statewide code itself. So the proposal, the local law, I think it was a law. Yeah, it was a change to the law was being discussed would repeal the separate local stretch code and instead rely on the current New York State Energy Conservation Construction Code. Buildings would still have to meet the state's energy efficiency requirements for things like insulation windows, heating systems, and overall building performance. The main change is that the town would no longer maintain separate local stretch code and would instead enforce the statewide code. So chances are it's probably maybe a tiny bit better, but I'm not sure. So I apologize for that misinformation. The other thing I want to bring up personally is that if you watched the meeting last night, you know that Darla and I were not chosen for the marketing outreach and communication committee. I actually knew that ahead of time, and I'll tell you how I knew that. Councilmember Amlaw brought up last night in the meeting about it's not soundproof in that meeting room that they do executive session. Councilmember Amlaw had many residents contact her in regards to what they heard. I had many people contact me. So I listened to it. And these are the things that I heard. It was stated many times that there was two people that they interviewed, and I'm not taking this personally, just for the record, because I knew I wasn't going to get chosen. So that's cool. But again, when there's microphones and all things around, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
discuss that even more later, be consciously aware of what you're saying. So what was said was numerous times is that there was two people that they interviewed that was an absolute no. And it was stated Darla and Joanna. It was also stated that if they needed more members, something along those lines, that they would rather go out to letters of interest um, rather than bring on me and Darla, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of sad because you
Okay,
have,
but they stated who stated.
um,
I think it's important.
I'm going to let that be.
Okay.
So, my opinion is if they really wanted to bridge the divide, you had two people that ran against the board last year. Why not bring them? At least bring Darla on. It's
Mm-hmm.
done. It doesn't matter. But I knew ahead of time. And it made me not sad for me because I already knew, but
Yeah. Still, it just shows that there's no intent, real intent on trying to bridge the divide.
my appearances no, but when it was,
Words are a lot of things,
yeah,
but actions speak a lot louder.
yeah. And I guess the other thing that really bothered me,
People's faces, be nice to them and cordial and what have you, but you know.
the thing that really bothered me was they knew last week. Why did they not send an email out to the two people that weren't chosen? And I also find it interesting that they chose six people rather than the five. Why not just choose everyone? That's
Right.
what Councilmember Amlaw had wanted. So I just wanted to tell you guys that I already knew that when we did our video on Monday, because I did listen to the video and I've had a lot of people contact me about it, and
Yeah.
that's why Councilmember Amlaw brought it up last night. I think it's distasteful and it's sad that that's where we're at. It is going to be what it's going to be, and it's
Kind of gives
okay.
you a little insight as to what's going on behind closed doors.
Perhaps
And again, it doesn't put a good light.
it's unfortunate.
Hmm.
And there was conversation in the board meeting last night in regards to, and we'll hit privilege of the floor in a little bit, but um that, how do we get answers? And the answer to that question was, town supervisor said, you can email me the questions that you have. Um, Councilmember Tippecraft said that's what we're hoping, that the new committee with the communication part can do the meetings, public meetings, Q&As, which then brings up the question is the Q&As, how are those committee members going to know the answers to the questions?
Especially since when the election was happening and even after, it was not brought to the public that this is the way it was going to be done. We were basically informed that it was going to be the board that was going to have, basically, I believe they even called it like a separate meeting, but not a board meeting, where the public could ask questions and get answers. Now that is not what's going on.
So I think, if memory serves me correctly from other things I heard in that video, I think what the plan is, I don't know if they're going to do it monthly, quarterly, or whatever, is that there would be some Q&As and then maybe the board would come in. But see, then that's the problem because you're not getting answers to the questions in
Mhm.
real time.
Right.
And as far as emailing, I know somebody that hasn't gotten a response to a question in 3 months. Um, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So those are the two things that I wanted to touch on before we head down this path of the town board meeting last night. And let me just cross this off. I first want to say kudos to the board for expressing their appreciation for our highway superintendent.
Right.
Because those boys, even his boys, they're men, not boys. It's been hell this winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It has.
yeah, and I'm glad that they all agreed to do what Pete wanted to do with, the vehicles and the equipment. And again, kudos to Marcy. Good job. So, she did also get accolades last night. Definitely deserved. And I guess now we're just going to get right to it. Yeah. First up, the update on the walkable downtown project. This whole,
Here's my only input, and then you can have yours. I will agree in some aspect where, like where Susan was saying, we agreed that we would do what the town voted for, and
100%.
100%. They agreed. Absolutely, we should go forward. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form we should go above the budget that we already have.
Which they said we're not going to.
Right.
That's what they said.
But what about this other grant? Doesn't that end up
So, okay, so here's the deal. If we get the new TAP grant, and it was said the only way they will accept that grant is if the taxpayer portion does not go above the agreed amount of the bond of 499,000.
right?
So if we get the grant, if the grant is accepted, we accept the grant, the old grant pretty much is gone, and now we're doing this grant. And it will be concrete. And last night it was stated again, the
I heard a lot
DOT,
of what ifs last night, or if they get, or if we get. I heard a lot of that.
right. And a lot of people don't trust it. That's the problem. So last week I put up a video with the three consecutive meetings about the downtown, walkable downtown, the sidewalks. And the story changed every single meeting. And I think the thing that bothers me is in the January meeting, it was stated stone dust was not approved. It has to be asphalt or concrete. Then it was, we're going to go out for a TAP grant um, for asphalt. And then, nope, it's going to be too much to the taxpayers. We're just going to stick with the budget we have and do as much as we can with that with asphalt. And then it went to DOT said no to asphalt. It has to be concrete. This is these are the things that make
Right.
people go,
Hmm.
how did we get here? Because again, the committee was a private committee.
Yep.
And again, I'm not saying I'm against or for the sidewalks. That's not what this conversation is about. But the story has changed so many times, and the lack of transparency since this committee has been formed, which I still can't figure out when that was, it just looks questionable. I mean,
Yeah.
the optics of it are terrible, and maybe it's not. But the fact of the matter is clearly we don't have all the information.
Right. Right.
Since January, this story has changed three times. And people are going, whoa, hold
Right.
up. The other thing that was stated last night was that legally this cannot go back out to referendum. I'm getting mixed information on my research on that. What is true is they can't redo the original referendum. The original vote approved a specific bond resolution under New York State local finance law. Once the referendum was passed and the legal challenge period expired, that authorization simply it cannot be rerun. So you cannot do a referendum on that same exact thing, which actually wouldn't be the same thing because it appears, and it's again confusing, which we'll touch on that,
Hmm.
that the grant is going to be for more money. It's for a longer distance, although they did a pretty good job with the bond resolution because there's a lot of loopholes in there, like 20 and 22. So technically, the new part by the park is on 22, but it will be more lineage fees. So there are some specs of this that are changing. The other thing I'm confused about, I thought we were only doing sidewalks on one side of the road.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So I got lost there too. Um,
Or at least I thought that from at least from 22, I thought it was just going to be one side.
I thought the whole thing was going to be one side, but I must have missed the memo on that. If the board, okay, so they could hold a new referendum with the new proposition. If the board wanted to, it could adopt a resolution that says something like, shall the town of New Lebanon proceed with the expanded Route 22 pedestrian pathway project consisting of approximately whatever number of linear feet funded by a New York State DOT TAP grant of approximately dollar amount and previously authorized bond financing not to exceed 499,830. That would be a new proposition and not reopening the original one. The vote could be a special election or held at the next general election, which is in November. Um, why they are saying it cannot happen. The bond amount is unchanged and the object purpose sidewalk has not changed. Therefore, no new referendum is legally required, but not required and not allowed are
Not
two
allowed.
different things.
Yeah, completely different.
Right. If the board wanted to, they could legally pass a resolution describing the expanded project, submit that proposition to the voters, and hold a special election or include it in a regular election. What they can't do is redo the original bond referendum. But they could absolutely submit the revised project to voters in a new special election. If the board chose to do so, they simply are not legally obligated to do it. So they could if they wanted to.
Right.
That's the short of that story. Anything else on the downtown project at the sidewalk? It's just very confusing. A lot of what ifs. It comes down to the lack of transparency again, right?
Right.
It's unfortunate. All right, so update on the fire and any town board action needed. Again, awesome that the board approved everything Pete was looking for.
Yes.
EV charging stations, same as we talked about. Farmers Market is going to take that over, and I believe what the deal is we pay the contract, but the Farmers Market pays us back.
Right.
The Outreach and Marketing and Communications Committee, we already talked about that. Update on the new playground in Stafford Park. I think they gave a start date. I don't remember what it was, but they are planning on having it done before the
Before the park program starts.
mhm. Reappointments, CAC letters of interest, policy review, a resolution concerning rising electric costs that went through last night. Um, two committees that, oh, I got to talk about that. I had mentioned in our earlier podcast this week that there's going to be a public meeting for the Room Enough for Two, which was the pilot program of housing and conservation. Shame on me because I thought that was kind of like a last public input session, but it is not. It is for the pilot program to present to the comprehensive plan committee. And I don't remember who else, but I know that for sure. Public is invited. It will be live streamed, but it's not going to be an interactive public,
Right.
whatever. So I'll be curious to see that. And that is March 26th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the town hall. And it will be recorded, which is good. And by the way, let's talk about that, right? I don't think we should be having any sort of anything that has to do with anything with the town at the community center where it's not able to be recorded.
And right, unless it's able to be recorded somehow.
Right, because like Mr. Modine said, who is disabled, what about the people that can't get out? And if it's not being recorded, it's all hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that there was some conversation about getting video equipment in there. I don't know whatever happened to that. All right, fence is being repaired at the park. This summer camp house director trade for camp attendance for her child. I cannot seem to locate a job description anywhere in the job descriptions for a summer camp health director. It was touted last night that
She was a registered nurse.
licensed RN,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still unclear.
As to what her job is. I
Okay,
would like to know.
hang on. I'm going to let Tammy take over this conversation, and I'm going to trust that she's going to be a good girl.
I will try my
Okay.
very best. Well, basically, I would like to know what her job entitles because
Entails.
entails because last year I was told there was no nurse for the park program.
And it
Parents
was stated last night that she was
that
the
she
health
was the
director
nurse,
last
yes,
year.
and that there was no nurse for the park program. And any children that needed medication, their families had to come out during the day to the park to give the kids the medication themselves. I also know of a child who was hurt enough at the park to end up needing surgery, and yet there was never nurse interaction. Nobody ever spoke to a nurse. So I want to know what exactly is this position job entitle this person to do that's giving them free daycare?
No, I agree. And I think that, you should
I've
send
witnessed nothing that where a nurse would be involved. I've seen nothing. Again, I live across the street. I am at the park program every
every day.
single day. Every day. And specifically, we were told there was no nurse. So again, what is this job that this person is getting free daycare?
Right. And I think if memory serves me correct, I could be wrong, that she's on an on-call basis. And I
And
don't even know
even
what that
if
means.
so, we're talking the injury that happened, there was a 3 hour span from when the injury happened to when the child was picked up. Nowhere in that 3 hour span was there ever a nurse involved. Nowhere in the paperwork, nowhere did the nurse speak to anybody.
I would send an email to the town board and ask those questions.
I mean,
What?
those seem like pretty legit questions.
So then that way, it can't be, we're just looking for information. We're not trashing the town.
No, but if
Um,
there's a nurse, then what is the job? Because it's certainly not at the park with the kids.
right. And the comment was made, if we had to hire somebody to be on staff all the time, the town couldn't afford it.
Okay, but they're saying, this is her license on the line and whatnot. But again, I say, okay,
What's your job?
what's your job? Because it certainly isn't at the park, certainly not with the kids. So, something, again, it's just not making sense. There's another thing that's just not making sense. And I know, and this is what Joanna had said to me as far as what the price is for a kid for the park program. It's like 300 and something dollars. Okay. But again, this is another factor of this amount and this amount and this amount, and you put them all together and it just keeps adding up.
Adding up. Yeah.
And there's plenty of people who probably could really, use a break on their park program for their kids if they have multiple, and whatnot. But I just don't understand what is being done that affords free daycare. Because let's face it, it's what it is.
It is what it is. Yes.
So you're getting free daycare for what?
Mm. I would send a letter to the town board asking what that job description entails. Um, because I guess, like I said, I went through the job descriptions and I did not see anything for the health director. So,
If it's filling out a piece of paperwork or something, I'm pretty sure we could find somebody to do that. I just don't understand it, and it almost, even in the back of my brain with what I know, and I'm not going to go into any kind of, it almost seems like doing a favor for a friend, and I'll leave it at that, even though it's hard.
okay, good job, Tammy. Good job. Oh, so Highway 284 agreement, again, that is just the roads that the highway is going to pave this year or do whatever to it. Intermunicipal agreement, that's we agree to work with Ghent, Chatham, whoever. And we talked about the local energy law. So now let's
Yes,
talk about privilege of the floor.
shall we? This is where I'm going to try to have to behave myself again.
Yeah, so here's the problem, and we've said this over and over and over again. You can't do both. You're either going to answer everybody or you're going to answer no one.
And it would have solved one of those situations last night if that's the way it was done, either all or none.
Right. And there was privilege of the floor in the beginning. Bonnie LeChuck had given her presentation on the Tilton projects. I also don't even remember who spoke besides her, but there was four emails. One was from me, one was from Craig, one was from Rick Stahl, one was from Sean Halls, which was nice to know that Sean's still out there.
Yeah.
Craig asked for a breakdown of what the 13,800 has been spent on and how much is left, which is given to the Office of the Aging, aka the seniors.
Hmm.
I did notice that the president of the seniors was there last night, but the event coordinator was not there. Squirrel.
Yeah.
So there was no response. Mine was a bunch of questions. Update on the pharmacy. update on the skate park, update on there was a third thing. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. And then asking again the questions on the bond anticipation note that I had sent an email last week about. I have not gotten a response.
Let me.
Um,
Yeah.
right. So, and remember, because someone got scolded last night,
Mm,
privilege of the floors needs to go to the town supervisor. Email to the town supervisor. I personally send it to everyone on the
yeah,
board
that's what I've done too.
as well as the town clerk.
Send it to everybody.
And I also asked, why is our meeting minutes and resolutions, why do we not have stuff archived on our website? We have
Right.
some things
Yep.
archived.
That was
And, if I want to look back 10 years to see what was happening with the meetings and resolutions, I have to go to the town clerk.
right.
And
And
I
it does
volunteered that if we can make that happen, I'd be volunteer to scan
because it just
whatever.
creates more work for the town clerk who we already know is severely extended.
Right. So I did volunteer that. I got no response on that. Um, Rick had mentioned pausing the sidewalks, talking about Cindy's Antiques who passed away. Rest in peace.
Yes, I know.
And I remember when that building used to be Mercier's store 100 years ago. Um, Sean was against the sidewalk project. I do want to, and I want to go back to this because we said it in the beginning. The board agreed that when the vote went through, whatever the majority of that vote was to do or don't do the sidewalks, they would stand by that decision. I totally get it, and I totally agree with that's the way that should be.
Yep.
So then we go through the whole meeting. Mr. Modine did speak, and he said kudos to Mars, and he was talking about the energy and gas and oil. So then we get to the end of the meeting where there's the final privilege of the floor. And again, first privilege of the floor, there was no conversing back and forth.
No. Nope.
Final privilege of the floor. Bonnie and another woman, um,
I asked a question.
Trina, I had to think of her name. She was just asking questions about a planning board member because she genuinely didn't know.
Right.
And as the conversation, and she was really honestly, truly trying to understand.
Right. She was confused.
So, town supervisor started to talk about it. It got louder and louder. And Trina was just like, okay, but, because she's still not understanding. And then it got a little bit more, the only way to do it is the Article 78. This isn't the place to talk about it. This probably went on for a little bit. And then another board member,
Made a big freaking no-no.
I don't even know how to describe it. It was a little
Like you were
aggressive.
scolding a 5-year-old in a very, very unprofessional tone.
Yeah.
Definitely not how you speak to any resident that is there. Um, you should be much more professional than that. I
I was a
supported this
little,
person too, so I was very taken back. And I will tell you, if it was me in that seat that had had that tone taken with me, it would not have ended there. It would
well,
not
so
have
I
ended
think it's
there.
interesting that everybody bitched about Craig
Hmm.
in his delivery. That was, and I've had a lot of people contact me. Uh, It
I
was,
took
I,
issue with it. Everybody knows
and
that.
maybe that is this person's demeanor. But that was a little,
Yeah, check it at the door because
that was,
someday it's going to be the wrong person at the end of that attitude. Because if it was me, it would have been the wrong one, the wrong one. You don't speak to people like that, let alone a lady. take that tone with a woman. That's just
It
again,
was, I was a little taken back. So
yeah,
I hope that this person learned from that.
yeah, needs to take a good look at the way you're speaking, and you're up there representing the town.
Yeah.
You're
I
not
felt kind of
scolding.
bad
You're
for
not
Trina.
scolding your children.
And,
You're
you
not.
know, and privilege of the floor is to talk about anything that's town related, in my opinion, whether it's the planning board, well, it's the Tilton projects, no matter what it is.
And again, this problem would have been solved if nobody had anything to say at the first privilege of the floor, but this one, they were going to talk. Well, if you're going to talk at the, again,
And there was a response to every single privilege of the floor at the end of that meeting last night. You know, Patty Ann, you know, voiced her opinion that, you know, where do we go to get questions answered? You know, we agreed it was about the sidewalks. We agreed on one thing and now it's changing. So
yeah,
that was the whole rhetoric back and forth. Um, and that she's not the only one that feels that way. And she's absolutely not the only one that
no,
feels that way. Not from what I'm hearing. I run
no.
into people, I'm getting a lot out a lot more, and I run into a lot of people at the post office now. And I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I'm trying to stay neutral. And then Scout spoke, and you could hear the frustration in Scout's voice.
Absolutely.
You know, and his point was,
Super glad to be hearing from him, though, still.
yes, me too. Love
Keep
that
your voice
boy.
out there. Keep your voice out there.
Love that boy. So he had a point. It doesn't matter what we say, and I'm using that phrase. It could be you and me, it could be them, it could be whoever. It doesn't matter what we say. And like he said, the only person on that board that listens is Joanne.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
how
that
hard it
listens
must be
to a
for
good,
her to be there.
yes, that listens to a good quantity of people in this community. Because this is what they need to understand again. Your little group is not the community. There is much more
It's
than
part
that.
of the community.
Right, it's part of the community, but there's much more that makes up the community.
Hmm.
And again, when one side feels like it's not being heard, they're not being heard, that's a problem.
And that's what's causing the division.
Yep.
The other thing I want to just circle back to the sidewalk thing is that it was presented last night that the engineer that did the application for the original TAP grant is not the same engineer that they were talking to. So this engineer said one thing and this engineer said the other thing. I just find that weird.
Right.
So, you know, Scott was very frustrated and he said, you know, what is the point? Because we don't matter. And I did talk to Scout last night after, but I mean, it's sad. But if you're interested in all of this, you can watch the last 20 minutes of the video. That'll give you an inclination.
Yep.
And last night that whole thing made me sad. And then they were waiting for Mr. Modine to come on to do his last privilege of the floor.
Mhm.
And there's people making derogatory statements under their breath
Yep.
about Mr. Modine. Like, come on. It's a board member.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yep.
those microphones pick up everything.
Yep.
We got to do better, man.
It's just, again, it's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of answered questions still leaving people with
With
questions.
more questions.
So, yeah, some things need to be clarified.
He's not wrong to feel that we don't have a say.
No, no.
And again, I will say you either answer all of the privileges of the floor or you answer none. And you usually when there's conversation back and forth is usually a hot topic, and that's when you shouldn't say anything.
Yep.
If you either do it all or you do none.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Because, again, there are people that are, if you're not going to answer some of the people, then you're causing an issue because then, well, why can't they be answered with their
Well,
questions?
see, and that's exactly the thing. So why didn't you answer any of my questions?
Yep.
But then you answered these questions, and my questions were pretty direct.
Yep.
So you start to feel a certain type of way about it.
Hmm.
Um, body language. The body language is terrible on that board. Again, in the whispering and then,
Hmm.
comments under your breath. I don't know. Not trash in the town, we're trash in the system, I guess. Well, there we have it, folks. Another episode of What in the Hell's Happening?
Hmm.
Stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about next
Oh,
week.
I'm sure.
That's all we have for today. Stay tuned and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, follow, do the damn survey.
And interact. Let us know. Let us know your thoughts on the meeting. We really, really want to hear it.
Are we wrong? Maybe.
Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.